Okay, so back with another mock draft. This one, it's not going to be the entire draft. What I want to really do is just sort of do a draft where I just go through things and say, what do I think is going to happen? This one isn't what do I believe should happen or anything like that. Just what do I think is going to happen? What are the decisions that these teams are going to make? And so, without further ado, I guess let's just go ahead and let's get into it. And once I get this share screen thing open, then we can get into it. Here we go. So yeah, we'll start off with obviously number one, Trevor Lawrence. We all know that's going to happen. Zach Wilson, that seems obvious. It really gets interesting with number three. I hear some people saying Mac Jones maybe could go here. Well, I wouldn't hate that necessarily. I just don't know if that's going to happen. I think Justin Fields is going to go here. I feel like there's so many things that lead to it seeming like it's going to be Justin Fields. I even saw that someone had done some research and figured out that when Kyle Shanahan became the offensive coordinator for Matt Ryan started playing with like a different foot further back and with his right foot back. And then Justin Fields, who had always played with his right foot up when he's taking the snap, then he moves his back. So to me, that kind of says, maybe it's nothing, maybe it's reading something into it, but it feels like they're very much taking Fields seriously and really trying to figure out what he can do. I think Justin Fields I think he's going to go here at 3. So let's see now. Number 4, I'm gonna go with Kyle Pitts. That seems like the obvious choice as well. I'm gonna go with, but that's what I think is gonna happen. I think they're just gonna say, hey, there's a couple of can't miss prospects on the board. There's Sewell, there's Kyle Pitts. We don't really need a left tackle. We could maybe use Sewell. I don't think it's out of the question that they go with Sewell here. That could be a surprise. I don't think they go quarterback here. I think that they trust Matt Ryan. Matt Ryan's not that old, and he's not that bad either. Like, he's a good quarterback who still has years left. Why not get a dominant offensive player who can really help your team? So that's what I think they do here. Number 5, I know there's been some talk. Do they go after Chase? Do they go after Sewell? I'm going to say they get Sewell. I do think there's a very real chance they get Chase. I think that's a mistake, but I think there's a very real chance. I think that Joe Burrow probably wants Jamar Chase. I think he's campaigned for that. And if you do that, that could be I think it would be a mistake, but they do have chemistry. Like, I understand the appeal behind it, I guess. I just think that you gotta protect Burrow. Number 6 here, this is the Miami Dolphins. I think they go Chase here. I've said in my mock drafts I would go Parsons because I like how he fits that defense. But I think they're going to go Jamar Chase because I think that they want a number 1 receiver, even though the receiving core I don't think is that bad with the addition of Fuller. They had some injuries last year as well. Like, I think get the player who could really help your team a lot as opposed to the player who I just don't know. I mean, I'm not a huge fan of drafting wide receivers this early to begin with. Number 7 now for the Detroit Lions. This is an interesting one as well for Detroit because I could see them going a couple different ways. They could go quarterback. I just don't know if they're going to. But if you don't go quarterback, who else do you go here, right? Do you get Surtain? Do you get Slater? I think they're not going to want to go corner, especially a slower corner after they got burned by a slower corner who kept getting burned in Jeffrey Okudah. Same thing with like J.C. Horn. And I don't think they go wide receiver this early. So I think they probably do go quarterback, right? They probably get – did they get Trey Lance here? I could easily see this happening. I don't think that's out of the question, right? I haven't seen any people mock that, but that seems logical to me. I'm just trying to look at this through like logically. What if these GMs were smart and they were kind of thinking the way that they think? Because, I have a different grading scale. What would you do? Well, I think that would make a lot of sense. And I think for 8, man, so this is the thing too. I think Mac Jones should be the pick here. I just don't think they're going to pick him. For whatever reason, I just think they're not that hot. They trust Sam Darnold. To me, this is an easy Mac Jones pick. I don't think they do that. I think they're going to go. So did they go Rashawn Slater? Do they go a corner? They could go a corner. I would not be shocked at all to see that happen. I don't think they need a receiver. Although they couldn't use a receiver. They lost Curtis Samuel. This is a tough one to me. I'm going to say that they go out and get Rashawn Slater, which again feels like a bit of a reach, but I do like Slater. I think he's a good player, so I wouldn't hate it. It's just not what I would do. Number 9 for Denver. I just can't imagine them not going quarterback. Like, I know some people are saying, well, maybe Micah Parsons. Think about how well he would fit in that system. Sure. And well, for one thing, I'm not sure if that's actually the best system fit for him, but he's a great player. He'll still make it work. But I also think that, like, you need a quarterback. And this is the last year that Vic Fangio has, really. If they have another bad year, he's done. So he's going to be campaigning for. He's going to say, "I'm not putting all my eggs into Drew Lock basket. Get me a quarterback." And there's only one of the big five still on the board. So Mac Jones feels like the pick right here. Number 10, I do think they go Surtain. I think they want a corner. I think that's a bit too high for a guy who doesn't run a very fast 40-yard dash, which is a real thing. I keep trying to harp on this because people want to say, well, watch his tape. His tape is great. He's not running against guys who run consistent 4.4s. So that's the reality of the situation. But again, he could work out too. Like there is a lot he does very well, but I don't know. It's too big of a gamble for me personally. Number 11 here, we have the New York Giants. I think I'm just going to go Parsons here. This feels like best player available. I think that it's tough because like they could go with Darisaw also. That's what I've been doing, but I think they're going to go Parsons, just figuring best player available. But I think Darisaw would make a ton of sense. For number 12, I think they're going to go wide receiver. It'll either be Devonta Smith or Jalen Waddle. I'm not entirely sure which one. I could easily see them going either way. I'll go Jalen Waddle just because they have it ranked higher there, but it might be Smith. Like I could see either one happening. And now for 13, I wouldn't be shocked to see the Chargers go with like a JC Horn type, right? To just sort of get their replacement for, Staley can sort of get his replacement for Ramsey, who, he had Jalen Ramsey with the Rams last year. So now trying to get a big physical corner, not what I would do, but what I think they might do. Now for the Vikings, I do think they could use some offensive line help. Darisaw is on the board. Is that what they're going to do? Jalen Phillips, I think would be a great value here, but I don't think that's necessarily what they're going to do. They don't really need. I think they might. I think they might end up going Phillips here, but I think that wouldn't be the smart move. I'll say they end up going with Darisaw. I could see that not happening, but get the best offensive lineman on the board when you need offensive linemen. That seems like a simple solution here. For the Patriots now. So what do the Patriots do? They could use a quarterback for sure. They could definitely use a quarterback. They could also use they could maybe use a wide receiver. They could use a linebacker. I think they go JOK here. I think that Belichick trust his defensive scouting. Obviously, the drafting guys in the first round that are skill players hasn't worked out too well for him. That's why he signed a bunch of those guys. They could use a linebacker. Get Jock here. I like that. Number 16, we have the Cardinals. The Cardinals could use a cornerback, which is interesting, although this feels like they would probably consider it a reach at this point, even though I wouldn't hate that at all for them to get a corner. They might go wide receiver. I don't know. This is a tough one. I think I'm going to give them Elijah Vera Tucker. Improve the offensive line. That makes sense. It's high on the board. It's what a lot of other teams would do. The Raiders are that kind of team that who knows what they're ever going to do. They just find a player that they like and they get them. They don't really need an edge guy, even though I think Phillips would be a great fit here. They don't need a wide receiver, so they're not going to go that route. They could go a Tevin Jenkins route. I could also see them just saying, like, screw it, we're going to go completely wild and, get someone who's not even on this top 12 right here. Could go like a Christian Barmore. I don't think that's crazy. I really don't. For the Raiders, that's kind of like they do their own thing. They don't just listen to what other people say. I'll go Tevin. What would they do? What do the Raiders do? That's the interesting thing because it's just so hard to figure out. I could see them going with just an offensive lineman to sort of make up for not having Trent Brown. I guess we'll say that. They lost some offensive linemen, going to use their first round pick to try and make up for it. I guess that works. Number 18, the Miami Dolphins. Do they go? So they already got a wide receiver, right? But they could potentially try and double down on that with Devonta Smith, maybe, potentially. Is he really going to fall this far? Probably not. Maybe, I feel like he's probably going to go a little bit earlier because, people are really high on him. I think maybe Miami just doubles down. But then, I don't know. I think they have too many receivers at that point. How about Jalen Phillips? I would love that to go their way if they end up with Jalen Phillips. So I feel like at this point, not a lot of what I'm saying that really has a ton of logic because who knows what's going to happen this far in a draft. One little thing goes different and that can change everything. So what do you think is going to happen is not very good for someone who's not an insider. Maybe this isn't too great. We'll do 2 more picks, I guess. I said I wasn't going to do the whole thing. At this point, I feel like I'm just guessing. Devonta Smith goes here. And then for the Bears, they're like a complete who knows pick at this point. So I said I would do 2 more. What it would do Do they maybe reach for a quarterback? I think no, right? Maybe they trade back and then try to get a quarterback. I could see that happening. They don't need an edge. They don't need a corner. They don't need a linebacker. They don't need defense in general. The next highest on the, maybe like they go Rashad Bateman. That would be insane though, right? Why would you do that? I mean, maybe you could try to get an offensive lineman. They're really in no man's land. So I'm just going to be honest. I have no idea. I'll say Rashad Bateman, but I could see something else happening. At this point, I really have no idea. I think the first, my opinions on like the first 10 picks or so, I feel pretty good about. And then I feel somewhat confident about like the next like 5 or 6. But then at a certain point, it just gets completely off the rails. Because who knows? When it's that wide open, it's really hard to say. You can kind of guess the beginning part, but towards the end, it's impossible, which is why I decided to not do the whole draft this way. But yeah, just a fun thing. Listen, mock drafts, they're a lot of fun. I hope you guys enjoyed this video. And of course, as always, thanks for watching.